Hi, everybody. This is Professor Healy from the Duquesne University Media Department. And in a moment, we'll be joined by Andrew Holman, Duquesne graduate. There he is. Andrew, hi. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Likewise, been a few years. Andrew was a student of mine back in the day when the sports media major was a concentration. So as I'm sure he's seen by now, it's now the sports information and media major. And in Andrew's day, it was a concentration for the journalism as well as PR majors. And Andrew, I believe you were a journalism major here.
Yeah, I actually double majored in journalism and PR, so I got kind of both sides of it.
There you go. Andrew's one of our former outstanding senior award winners. He's been for the sports media major now, back then in concentration. And ever since, Andrew's bounced around the world of professional sports. Although, if I recall correctly, you sort of got your first exposure to big time sports right here at Duquesne University. Can you talk to us about what your current role is now in professional sports, and then, from where you came?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Holman. Currently, my current role is football communications coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So basically, what I studied and what I wanted to do while I was in school is what I'm doing now, and I'm very grateful for that. Just working in PR and basically promoting our team and our players in the best way possible, setting up interviews, handling all the stats and information type stuff. Basically, a lot of the same stuff that sports information directors do in college, but here on the pro sports level with the team. So kind of how I got here, while I was at Duquesne, like Professor Healy said, I'm double majored in journalism and PR, and then also did the sports concentration, which was really cool for me. During that time, I met a lot of good people. Professor Healy brought people into our class, like Josh Taylor, that helped me get an internship with Triv Live Sports Radio in Pittsburgh. I also got connected with the athletics department and did play-by-play for them. As well as some other things around the athletic department. I wrote for the Duke and then became the sports editor my last year there. So I got a lot of versatile and different experiences while I was at Duquesne. But also my last year there, I started doing part-time PR assistant on game days for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was kind of my first jump into the professional sports world, and it was super awesome to be able to do it, right by campus. Just made it super easy, and obviously I think that went a long way to me getting to where I am now. And so since graduating from Duquesne, I've bounced around a lot. My first experience was here in Tampa, actually, which was back in 2017 with the Buccaneers. I spent a season here working in PR as an intern. There was no full-time jobs open, so then I went up to Detroit, did an internship there with the Detroit Tigers, then went down to San Antonio and did a year with the San Antonio Spurs. And then 2019, I finally got my first full-time gig back here with the Bucs.
Yeah, thank you. That was perfect. Hey, if I'm not mistaken, I think you and I worked a few games, right, with soccer and lacrosse. That might have been your first time on the mic, was right at Rooney Field. I think you were my color guy, and then you took over the next year, right?
Yeah, it was awesome experience. It's one of probably my favorite things I've ever done in my career. It was just a lot of fun, and working with you and working with Matt Vogel was just it was a great time and great experience for sure.
That's right. That was Matt. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things too, is seeing folks like yourself take advantage of those opportunities. So that kind of dovetails to my first question about which was given to us by students on social media and recent graduates who wanted to know what it's like building and showcasing a professional portfolio in this industry of media, particularly for you, sports media, and or sports public relations. So about when and how you started your portfolio, was it then you would say, oh, look, you basically built your portfolio or clips through this play-by-play commentary and through writing for the Duke? Was that the start?
Yeah, for sure. I think when I was leaving college, pretty much all my clips were from the Duke, my play-by-play experience, and then also I did a summer internship with the Akron Racers, which was a professional softball team that I had worked for one summer. So I had some clips from like PR type clips from there with press releases and game notes and things of that nature.
So your experience and the things that you've built are going to look much different than somebody who's let's say in professional photography or videography. Your clips, if you will, are more or less, like you said, game notes or things that you've produced that are just things you've written yourself. Like the design might not even be the same. The shell from the team that you worked within is not something you designed, but the copy are things that you wrote, right? And so you have to then take that copy to your next possible job. How do you go about capturing those game notes and just literally explain it to people who've never done it before so that you can show the next people who work in a sports PR office, like, here's how I can write, here's how I can set up game notes and programs?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the foundation of all of it is really just being able to write around statistics and numbers. So that's something that really just comes from practice. Being a good writer obviously is pretty essential to it, but then also just learning how to work with numbers. And as a team PR person, we're not we're unbiased, but we're also obviously always trying to promote our players and our team. So you learn kind of different ways to make your players sound as good as you can with different numbers and stuff like that. So we have a variety of stat softwares that we use, which is kind of where we it's a lot of number crunching. A lot of you have to learn how to do the searches to find what you're looking for and kind of create new things. We also bounce ideas off of like Eli Sports Bureau and things like that. So they sometimes will help us find what we're looking for if we can't do it on our own. But yeah, it's definitely it's very time consuming. We put game notes together for every game. So depending on the sport, like for football, we obviously only have one game a week, so our game notes are much longer. When I worked in baseball, they were only a couple of pages because you have to be able to turn it over in a day. So it kind of all depends what you're working on. But yeah, it's basically the whole point of it is so that media members and broadcasters as well have things to talk about, have things to write about, just interesting tidbits that they may not have found on their own. And so I guess, yeah, like that's basically the basics of game notes. And then for me, I personally just I didn't really have any graphic design experience. Didn't really take too many classes on it while I was in school, though I wish I would have. But since graduating, I've kind of taught myself a little bit. So I'm definitely not a graphic designer by any means, but I've definitely improved our game notes a lot in terms of the design and the look of it. We just our graphics team has a ton of stuff on their plate, so that's just one thing that we kind of try to keep in-house in our PR department. So I actually have been doing all the design for it, and I've enjoyed it a lot, and I've learned a lot and come a long way from the first edition to where we are now. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of it.
So let's say hypothetically, then let's say you don't work for the Buccaneers 10 years from now. Is there are there things you're building right now that maybe you could even show us by chance if I make you ability to share a screen that you can show us that would be in a portfolio for you in the future? Again, not saying you're not happy with the Buccaneers, but just as hypothetical, if you were building your portfolio now to take to another job, what would that look like? What would you be able to show, let's say, the Oakland Raiders, or if you end up back with the San Antonio Spurs or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website, portfolio website, as well as work sample. So I definitely I'm happy to share those.
Yeah, please.
Um, yeah. So am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, you should be now.
Okay. All right. So it's going to be on a launch Zoom meeting thing first, but I'll get back. So this is. Can you see this?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is the homepage of my website. I don't have a super fancy website. I'm sure Cindy Bauer, with her production aspect,
Right.
is much more professional than mine. Just really has my experience. I got my resume down here on the homepage, and then this is kind of my recent experience. I just have various things here. So I have some of them pulled up. So one of the basic things, and if you work in PR or sports information, is press releases. So one of the press releases I wrote the one when we signed Tom Brady. So obviously, it was a pretty big news event in our organization's history. So I just have this, and then made a little graphic for it at the bottom too. So it kind of just gives people an example of my writing, my ability to find statistics. We also ghostwrite all of the quotes for our executives. So anytime you see anything attributed to our general manager, our PR department usually comes up with the quotes, and then they're approved by the executives. So that's another thing. I have a whole sheet of quotes that I've written announcing player signings and other things like that, which is definitely a great experience if you're on the PR side. And then this is an example of the game notes that I kind of changed. So this is my new edition of the game notes. Like I said, I don't have great that graphic design experience, but I just tried to kind of bring it up to life a little bit. The thing that I kind of tell myself all the time, I really just came up with this on my own, but I just have always told myself, like, nobody wants to read a dictionary, so you don't want just a bunch of words on a page because no one's going to look at it. But at the same time, like, you can't learn anything from a photo album, or can't learn that much from a photo album. So for me, I just kind of try to combine the two and just add some color and some pictures and graphics and all that type of stuff. So this is like my newer edition of our game notes. But then I also have an example. This is what they look like before. So before I got here, this is what we have been using, which obviously you can see is just more. It's just a lot of words on a page. It's not really nothing stands out as much. So That's kind of, this is where it was, and then this is my addition of where I brought it to now. So that's something I would say I'm pretty proud of, and I think being able to show employers like this is, you know, where it started, and this is where I took it to. It's just like a easy, clear example of kind of like the work of how I've contributed and changed things. And it's, I think that's like a big thing. Um, when you first get somewhere, obviously you're just learning the job and you're learning, how to do how to fit in your role. But then for me, I also just want to be able to kind of build on my role and then kind of improve everything that includes my responsibilities. I think it just proves my value and my worth more. So that's just something I've tried to do since I've been here. This is just a copy of my resume. I have a link to my portfolio site right here, as well as my professional social media channels and my contact information, and then just a description of all of the different places I've worked. Obviously, my Duquesne stuff right here, my volunteer experience, skill set, everything like that. So I don't know if you have any further questions about that stuff, or if there's other
No, thank you.
work samples or
That was
anything.
very helpful. Yeah, no, I want to point out to students who might be watching this, Andrew, just how clean your copy is, and how creative things like your slugs are when you famous Jameis and what have you, because those are things we replicate in class. And the fact that you have visuals to go along with getting people excited about signing Antonio Brown. Well, here's what his face looks like. Here's some of the biggest numbers called out as into graphics. And this sort of public relations that you're doing is to communicate sports to an audience that's totally coming from a partial news source. It's you as the sports info person. Now, that's obviously much different than sports writing, which you may have done, at the Duquesne Duke, where you were neutral. That ended up not being your career as a neutral sports writer. But if that had been your career, let's say sports writing was something that you thought you wanted to showcase, would you give any recommendations to those in our sports major right now or our journalism major as to how you might have gone about showcasing your news writing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the coolest things for me is double majoring in both things. I think it was super helpful for me because honestly, like a big part of my job is working with the media and making sure they have everything they need, and that's the broadcasters, the writers, the reporters, TV anchors. That's everybody. So for me, it's really nice because I kind of understand. Like I was on that side of things. I was a writer at one point in time. I was a sports editor, so I understand their needs and their the work process and things like that. So it kind of helps me be able to do my job. But looking back, if I would have gone the writing route, I think it's just showcasing your versatility. So, you want feature stories, you want hard news, you want investigative, maybe depending on what you're trying to write about. But then I think also it just goes beyond that. Like I think being able to show that you're real versatile, whether you can also do photography, whether you can also do graphic design, whether you can also do TV. I know like everything has become multi-platform at Duquesne, which is really awesome because that's how it is in the real world. Now places want to hire people that can do a lot of different things. And for me, like I said, I didn't come here with any graphic design experience. I still, my designs are nothing close to the ones of our graphic design department. But when we're in a bind, when we need things in short notice, now people come to me and like, hey, can you make this real quick? And so I think that's just another valuable skill that I have that isn't really like something I graduated with, but something I came up with on my own, and it's kind of made me more valuable with my employer. So I think just really that would be my recommendation, is show your versatility. That's your versatility in your writing and your versatility between writing and doing other things.
That's great to hear. You'll be happy to know that with the sports info major now, there's 9 elective credits I need to fill. So we've offered, for example, like we recommend photography or visual design because, of course, the kind of work you're doing now, right? So having some sort of background in visual design and layout would be really helpful when you're first starting your job. You said you've sort of learned on the job. And so that's nice to hear that is something that someone in your position would have to practice.
Yeah, no, that's definitely huge. And I think also like things are a little more like narrow focused because I'm at the professional level. But if you say start out in minor league baseball or somewhere else like that, you're going to be doing design, you're going to be doing like team insider reporting, you're going to be the PR person doing stats and media interviews, you're going to be doing photography. Like if you're in a smaller organization or a minor league type organization, you're going to be doing all of those different types of things, which is a great experience. But like I said, you're just going to need to be more versatile. The more versatile you can be, I think this probably goes for most industries, but definitely ours as it keeps changing. If you can do social media, things like that, it's definitely huge.
Can you explain the difference between that insider reporting, or what I've been calling in class brand journalism, that looks like, for example, you guys have team reporters who work for the Buccaneers. And although they work for the Buccaneers, they're supposed to sort of mimic regular journalism. What's the difference between that person's job and, let's say, somebody from the Tampa Bay Times?
Yeah, so I think we on staff have two staff writers who write for the team website, and then we also have a digital insider, Casey, and she does all of the videos that go on our social media, interviewing players, things like that nature. So they're all journalists in some regard, but team reporters. So the difference basically is that they're going to still do the same type of thing, that they're going to write about those similar things to everyone else, but it's always with the team. The team is always in mind and at the top of the mind. So they kind of have to structure their things in a way that's always, somewhat positive, or as positive as it can be. Obviously, if we lose, we're not going to write some glowing recommend story about how great we played, but like just with the team in mind and trying to be objective while also promoting the team at the same time. And then also when it gets into some things with like legal trouble and other issues, like our team reporters will not write about that stuff because we don't want any extra coverage of that type of thing. Obviously, from our team side, we want to kind of not cover that as much as possible.
Right, right. That's helpful. Thank you. Okay, so I want to go to a couple questions we got from some of our recent graduates or current students or even others. This one comes from Emma 8.82521, and Emma asks, "Is too much, quote unquote, in a portfolio ever a thing?" So, Andrew, when you were going from team to team early on, was it overkill to put, like 8 examples of game notes, or would you say, like, look, I did all this work and maybe the totality is your selling point? How could you answer that?
I would say there's definitely such thing as too much, especially in the industry that I work in, because it's so competitive. I mean, we're looking through hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants for our internship and things of that nature. So nobody has time to go through 8 different versions of game notes. Put your best game notes out there, your best press release, all that type of stuff. And for me, I think I have like a game note example from every team I work for, because say I wanted to apply for a basketball team later on, like I want to show I can do basketball too, like I want to show my skill set. But I've actually had a lot of employers tell me like, hey, your portfolio website is great, to be honest, we don't have time to dig through it. Can you send me your 3 best examples of your work? So I don't think I think there's definitely too much. I would say your portfolio website should be pretty full. Like you should put a wide variety of work on there, but just make sure you also have an idea of what are your best, truly your best pieces of work, that if somebody said, hey, send me your 3 best things, that you could send them, and like you feel confident that that's your best work that you're putting out there, because everybody's busy and everybody's overwhelmed. And honestly, like being now on the teams, or like in the position of being the people hiring, you realize how much of like, of course, we want to fill our open positions and our internships and all that, but like we also have so much work going on. And so I think when you're kind of in that position of applying for jobs or interviewing for jobs, like you kind of have it in your mindset that like this is the top of their mind thing. And in reality, like it's really not. There's just so much going on that the hiring process is such a small part of our everyday work. So just making it easy on them and making it a short, easy thing for them to digest is very important.
That's great to hear. A lot of these other questions that have been asked, we've sort of gone through answering them already in so many ways. But Haley.Jordan, if this is the same Haley, I know she's a recent public relations and advertising graduate. And Haley wants to know, what is the most user-friendly platform to use? Have you determined that it's this website that you can just store on that is best for sharing your portfolio to potential employers?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's I think some sort of Adobe website that I think a lot of our creative team uses now. I honestly can't remember what it's called. I think maybe called Behance or something like that. I
Yeah,
think
I've heard it's Behance. Another
yeah,
person recommended that.
yeah, I think that's like kind of the more creative version that a lot of people are switching to. I'm currently not looking for a job, so I haven't really dug too deep like recently. I use Weebly, and I think it's very easy to use.
Can you
Um,
spell that? What is that?
it's Weebly.
Oh, Weebly.
Um,
Yes, right. Your
yeah.
website where it was.
Mhm.
Okay.
So they have like a free version, which is what I use. Because like I said, I think I would probably either pay or just find a site that allowed me to do more things if I was on the creative video production type side of things. But for me, I just need to be ability to attach files basically, and make it look somewhat nice. So that's why a free site, the one I have, works fine. If I'm in a position later on where I feel like there's more I want to showcase, then I might switch. And I think the Adobe Behance would probably be the first place I look, because I've heard a lot of good things about it recently.
So, Andrew, as someone who's creating material that may or may not exist for the general public to see, and it's, primarily, it's a primary intended use is for reporters to see who are going to cover the team from a neutral third party perspective. It's probably, in your case, the best way that you can showcase yourself and promote yourself isn't as much in the clips as a videographer, for example, would do, as much as it is in your just ability to have to build relationships and trust with people. Am I right? And can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people relationship building is probably the number one part of my job, and probably the most important part of my job. So it's obviously not a tangible skill, but it's definitely, you provide a lot of value by being able to build relationships. And for us, that's with so many different types of people of all different backgrounds, and um, the amount of money they make is different. Their background, their ethnicity, like everything, their age. So for us, we build relationships with the team. We work with the players every single day, the coaches pretty much every single day. We work with the media every single day, and then obviously our coworkers in the building, as well as other PR staffs around the league, national media. So I mean, we are constantly interacting with all different types of people all the time, and so for me, I really think it's the most valuable skill is being able to find common ground with all those different types of people and being able to use those relationships to your advantage and kind of keep building them over time. And so for me, I kind of like, I try not to use the word networking because I feel like in the new era, networking has kind of become like, okay, send someone a LinkedIn request and 1 or 2 times a year, like check in with them. And I feel like that's not really like, you're not really building a relationship in that regard. So I like to use relationship building because I think that's much more important. And so for me, it's just taking the time to actually get to know somebody. I think there's a lot of times where it would be so easy to have like just a quick conversation and kind of move on. But for me, when I have the time and, if we're out of practice, for example, like I really try to, every day have like a long conversation with some media member or somebody. When we have open locker room, same thing with like a player. Like you obviously don't want to bother them, but like if there's a casual way, I know who likes basketball, which I love basketball, so we could talk about that. And just like finding common ground with all those people makes it just so much easier. And then the stronger that your relationship builds, the much easier it is to work with them. And that goes for the media, the players, everybody. Like the players are more willing to do things if they like you and they're cool with you, and the media is more likely to be understanding. When you have to tell them no, if you have a good relationship with them. So for me, I've just always tried to be like that. And I think the best way to really practice it is just talking to people and having like every interaction of your life, like make it a positive interaction and something that you can kind of learn from. So I mean, you're going to come across so many people every single day. And obviously you don't have time to have a lengthy conversation with everybody, but if you can you just have like a meaningful conversation with everybody you meet, I think you'll just kind of naturally learn how to be good at small talk, be good at getting to know somebody, be good at all those different types of conversations because you're just constantly communicating with other people. So um, my bosses kind of joke around because I like really talk to everybody in the building, all the players. They kind of joke with me because there'll be a guy that's like on the practice squad and he's here for like 1 week, and he'll come back like a year later, and it's like I've known him for 3 years
Right.
when in reality he was only here for a week. But for me, I just feel like I don't really care what your status is on the roster or who you are. Like I just want to have a good relationship with everybody. And kind of like a success story for me, I'd say was my first season back here full time. So it was 2019. That was Shaquille Barrett's first year with the Buccaneers. When he was in Denver, he was a role player, didn't really play a lot. So when he came here, like nobody really, he was just expected to be a role player, wasn't expected to lead the league in sacks like he did in 2019. But because I had a great relationship with him back then when he wasn't really a big like name, I still work with him now. I got to go to the Pro Bowl with him. I worked the Super Bowl with him last year, and then again with all this stuff when we actually went to Super Bowl this year. When we went and took the Lombardi Trophy to the Lightning game, I was in the suite with his whole family, kind of setting up his interviews and all that kind of stuff. So I've gotten some incredible experiences working with Shaq Barrett, and it's all because I started that relationship a long time ago when he first walked in the building. So for me, that's just kind of like a little story of why I keep doing what I'm doing, because I feel like it's got me a long ways. And also, even just in my own department, like I didn't have to interview. My first full-time job I didn't have to interview for because I already interned here. And they had a bunch of interns between the time I left and the time I came back. But I think they liked me enough and liked working with me enough that they just called and offered me a job. So I think
Mhm.
you can't really ask for a much better way to get a job than that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Because I do think a lot of people they underestimate just likability and being a friendly
Mm,
person. And as you said, if you're at a practice with a report, and reporters are there covering it, and you go over to someone and you talk to him or her because you know they like to fish and the weather was good that weekend. You can say, hey, did you catch anything this weekend? Did you wet a line this weekend? Did you get out at all? And to make it not about work makes them like you and makes it friendly. And now when you have to make it about work and it's maybe something they don't want to hear, it's a softer blow. And they remember you as a nice person. It gets you the next job or the next relationship, like you with Shaq, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
So thank you
absolutely.
for sharing that.
Of
Uh,
course.
all right. So the last thing I want to ask then, and I'll let you go, is kind of a two-parter because the audience for this video, Andrew, could be any, we're going to put it online, but I think that those who are coming up upon graduation, so current students, or maybe even very recent graduates this year or the last year, who have yet to break through to that next job. I want to ask for those who are still in school, okay, what can they take advantage of at Duquesne like you did to start your career as a student and not wait around and get behind? And then if somebody has graduated and they haven't quite made it yet, and they haven't gotten that first, big kid job that they really thought they started their career, what can they do now? They're maybe a year out of school or something, or 2 years out, to keep trying to build and get that next job. Can you answer those in two parts?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the students that are in school, say yes to everything. That would probably be my best advice. I think when I was a kid, I probably thought it would be super cool to be on TV calling games, but I never really anticipated ever having the opportunity. But when you brought it to me, I'd never done it in my life. I didn't really know how I was going to be, but I ended up loving it. And I think it was just another thing that I got to put on my resume and show what I could do. And again, like I said, now working with those people that broadcast games, like it's easier for me to understand, where they're coming from and what their job is because I've already done it. So I would just suggest, saying yes to everything. Obviously, make sure it works for you and make sure you know your value. But the more things that you can say yes to now is only going to help you later. I can tell you, there's a lot of people that call us. And like I get a lot of students that reach out from all over the country, wanting to get in this industry. And I think the hardest phone calls are the ones where the kids either graduated or a week from graduating, and they don't have any experience in the industry. And it's like you may be able to get a job with like a minor league team or something like that. But for the most part, this is a really competitive industry. So if you leave and you don't have any experience, like it's really tough. So I think while you're in college, you gotta take advantage of everything you can, say yes to everything. Um, and really just try to build the most like versatile and um, just best, just basically when you leave, you want to think like, wow, I'm qualified for every job that I'm applying for. Like I did everything I could while I was in college to make a resume that I'm proud of. So I would say that is what I would do if I was in college. And then for those students that are out of college, I'll say the number one thing is be patient. I interned 3 times after graduating, all of those times making minimum wage, moving across the country, like barely being able to afford my bills. But I knew this is what I wanted to do with my life, and I knew I was good enough. So I just had to wait for my opportunity. And so you're going to get told no a lot of times. And I've realized like there's a lot of tremendous people in this industry. Like I was getting told no, but now I know the people that got the job over me, and I'm like, wow, they're very good at their job too. So like it can be frustrating and it could be a little demoralizing at times. But at the end of the day, like just staying patient and just staying focused on what you do want to achieve is really important. And then the other recommendation I would have is definitely to reach out to people. I think too many people kind of just apply for a job and think that people are going to see your resume or your application or whatever. But like I said before, we get hundreds or if not thousands, depending on the year, of applicants for our internship program and stuff like that. So getting to know somebody in the department is huge. So reaching out to them personally via email is big because we don't always have to check the application side, but we do have to check our emails, obviously, as part of our job. So that's a good way for people to get to see your stuff. But for me, I would say also just reach out to people in general that are doing the job that you want, because you can learn a lot from a phone call with them. And I think you'd be surprised how many people are willing to do that phone call with you. And maybe down the road it leads to a job. I think the best advice I would have is go into that phone call not expecting an opportunity for a job or anything like that. Go in expecting to learn, and then you might be surprised with what it turns into. But you want the person to know you're there because you want to learn, not because you want a job. So the best time to network or build relationships is when you don't need a job, because then they usually the opportunities kind of present themselves. But just one example on that, I had an internship, but this was when I was in Detroit working for the Tigers. I kind of knew toward the end of my Tigers internship that like baseball wasn't really the sport I wanted to be in anymore. It was just not the lifestyle that I enjoyed compared to basketball and football. So I started, since NBA was the next season coming up, I started reaching out to all the NBA teams, sending them my resume, portfolio, everything like that. And so the director of the Memphis Grizzlies, Jason Wallace, he actually reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we already filled our internship for next year. Like, I don't have anything open." It's like, "But I would love to just have a phone call with you." So I took a phone call with him. And he, obviously I knew they didn't have anything open, but he had done a very similar, like his early career was very similar to mine, just bouncing around between sports, doing internships with different teams, working in the PR field. So it was just a great conversation, and we just got along really well. We clicked really well. And by the end of it, he was like, "Hey, like you really remind me a lot of myself. Like I think you did a great job." He's like, "I think you have a great head on your shoulders, all that type of stuff." And he was like, "I actually just got reached out to this morning by the Spurs PR director, and he used to work there. And he said, they have an opening for an intern for the season." And he connected me with them. And 3 days later, I got offered the Spurs position. So like, I could have said either ignore the guy or said, I didn't want to take the call, or just kind of packed it in knowing that like that call wasn't going to get me a job. But in the end, it actually did. And it was a different place, but I had no idea that it was going to lead to that. So definitely just build relationships with anybody you can, like I said, and contact people that have the job that you want, and you can learn a lot from those people. And every conversation that you learn, even just one good thing from, was definitely worth your time.
Andrews, this was definitely worth our time. So I hope students watch this and get something out of it, and recent graduates as well. Can't thank you enough. Congratulations on all of your success. You made us all very proud. When you get your Super Bowl ring, make sure you send a picture of it, okay? We want to see it.
Will do.
Hey, good luck this coming year too, buddy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.